Today on Politics Unplugged, she currently serves as the state's chief banker. Now she wants to be the chief of Arizona schools. We talked to Republican Kim Yee about her campaign for Superintendent of Public Instruction. Maricopa County leaders just passed a $4 billion budget. So what's that mean for the public? The chairman of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors explains. And chaos on Capitol Hill. Our panel breaks down the clash between two high-profile Arizona politicians, now on Politics Unplugged. Good evening. I'm political editor Dennis Welch, and this is Politics Unplugged. Back in 2022, Kimberly Yee was the only Republican to win one of the top 4 statewide offices, and she did it in a landslide in the race for treasurer. Now she's setting her sights on becoming the director of public instruction, challenging fellow Republican Tom Horn, and she joins us now. Thank you very much for stopping by here. And as we always do, first time on the show as a candidate for superintendent of public instruction. Give us your elevator pitch as to what you want to do and why you're doing this.
Well, as a state treasurer, I have seen the state superintendent, another executive officer, really go beyond the scope of the executive branch. He is legislating from that seat. And I have a long history in K-12 policy. I started my career over a decade in K-12 public policy, not only working for a state board of education and establishing academic standards in reading and math and science, but I also worked as the staff person who was the education research analyst in the Arizona Senate Education Committee. And so I helped work on laws when charter schools were being started back in the 1990s. We had something called school choice, just an idea back then, and we created open enrollment, allowing families to go to schools that were outside of their zip code. So I have a long history in K-12 policy, and I think we need to do better in the state superintendent's office. We have dismal scores. 25% of fourth graders are proficient in reading. That is too low. 28% in 8th grade. And if you look at our math scores, we're only at 31% in proficiency in math in 4th grade. And that is just something we need to continue to work on because these kids are being moved on to the next grade level when they're clearly not ready.
Now, let's follow up a little bit. You said that Tom Horn is legislating from his office. Let's unpack that a little bit. What do you mean by that? What specifically is he doing that you think it means he's legislating?
He's creating regulations beyond the scope of his role as state superintendent. Laws are made by the state legislature. I was a former legislator. I was the former chairwoman of the Education Committee, and that's where laws are made. It's with 90 members who are elected from their individual districts throughout the state, not one bureaucrat who sits in the office of state superintendent deciding what should or should not go forward with families across Arizona.
But if you get a little more specific, what kind of regulations?
Sure.
Obviously, there's been some friction between you two over the empowerment scholarship, the school voucher stuff.
Yes.
You've been critical of him, or he's said that you've been critical of him on that. Are you talking about that, or does it go beyond that?
It goes beyond that. Charter schools, for instance. A lot of families enjoy and have enjoyed for 30 years charter schools in Arizona, and he's over-regulating the charter school system right now with more paperwork, more burdensome administration, and we really need to get down to the students and their academic achievement. But let's talk about the ESAs because that's significant. There's almost 100,000 families using this wildly popular school choice program, and we have seen Tom Horn be critical about 1/100% of what has already been denied as expenses. So he uses often this example of the Rolex watch. Of course, that has been denied. Let's move on. So the law worked, allowing the legislature to put guardrails to say a $5,000 Rolex watch is not appropriate. It's not educational for that family. So it was denied. So why does Tom Horn keep talking about it wherever he goes? It's used as ammunition for the other side who want to take down the ESA program, which again has continued to grow and as a model across the country.
Yeah, and have you hold the records, you make the payments to the treasurer's office. Have you released those records on everything that has been spent?
We don't have those records. So the Department of Education is the day-to-day administrator.
But they're public records, though.
They are public records that they can get from actually some of the records that the media has been asking for are not public records.
How is that possible?
Because they are with a third-party vendor. And they are a private entity that is contracted by the state. So technically, it's not a public record if they're looking for those types of records under a different authorization.
Let me ask real quick, are you okay with that? Because you've been in the public arena for a long time. I mean, this is taxpayer money that's going to parents to send their kids to private parochial,
Right.
even homeschool?
Well, 99.99% of all of the expenses that have been used by the ESA program have been under the law. So families are actually following the law, 99.99% of them. So this 1/100% of the examples that are being used are and should be denied. And so with respect to public records, absolutely, if it's under the roof of a state agency and it's a public record, it needs to be released. But if they're asking for public records that are not within the agency's boundaries, that's not something that we or the Department of Education can, move forward. So they need to ask the vendor at that point, this is Class Wallet, for those pieces of information. The other thing that really becomes problematic is releasing private data, because there are federal and state laws, FERPA and HIPAA, that would guard that protection for the name and the expense, for instance, if it's a health expense for that student. So we can't release that type of data even if we had it.
Okay, and should it be released though? Is there something, if you were superintendent of public instruction in a couple of years, would you push for legislation making that more open then?
Well, it would violate FERPA and federal law.
I mean, beyond that, beyond the FERPA stuff, you would just make it a little bit more accessible, a little bit more transparent.
I have always been a fiscal watchdog at the state capitol. I have a pristine record of making sure we have financial policies in place and that there's transparency in place so that the records are put forward. And I've had awards given to me for that. But when you're talking about a private record of maybe a health need for a student with disabilities, that shouldn't be open to the public, because now you're moving forward their health-related medical products that they use for their homeschool. So that's something that you really have to, it becomes a legal issue and liability not only for the state, but also for that family.
Okay, and this program, as you mentioned, it has grown. You said nearly 100,000 people. It's costing about $1 billion a year. Should there be more guardrails on this? We know that Governor Hobbs called for guardrails, particularly on income. If a family is making a certain amount of money, $400,000 as a family, $500,000, maybe that they shouldn't be eligible to take taxpayer dollars to send their kids to private and parochial schools. And I say that only because we've seen a lot of growth in this program. A lot of kids who've never been in the public K-12 system are just now, they're getting subsidized to go to these private schools. Would you support guardrails?
That is the decision of the state legislature and the governor to make. As an administrator of the program, you really you can't cast your vote among those 90 members of the legislature. So you really, all you do is you administer what laws are passed. And whether or not you have a question, because there have been questions about caps and other things for expenses, I believe that if the superintendent has questions about whether or not there should be a cap on a particular item, maybe it's a laptop or something else, then he should go back to the legislature or a legal authority to find what that response should be, not make it himself. Okay,
just wrap up on this. We've just seen basically the end of this current legislative session. You're as an alumni of that institution. One of the things they didn't get to is the extension of Prop 123.
Right.
And that is money that is taken from the land trust that goes into public K-12 coffers. It needs to be extended by the voters. That will likely get thrown to the ballot next year. But there's been a fight between the Democratic governor and Republicans at the legislature. The Republicans want this money to go for teacher pay raises. They believe the governor wants to see it dispersed throughout more broadly amongst K-12 schools. What do you support?
Well, as the state treasurer, in my current role, I have indicated support for a 4 to 4.5% distribution rate, not the 6.9% that they currently have in place, or the nearly 9% that the governor wanted. She would like 8.9% distribution. That hits the principle of the fund. I fully support the idea of funding more teachers with more pay. And that is something in one of the packages, at least, that we have seen being talked about in the legislative branch. However, I would like to see that there be put triggers in place when distributions get to a rate, let's just say it's 6.9% that they land on. I would like to be able to see that roll back to 4.5% at least if we get to the principal. Because if you touch the corpus of this fund, you do decrease in value over time, because this is in perpetuity that we have the state land trust. And I have created the fund where we have had a 55% increase from the state treasury and my awesome investment team. And that is now valued at $9 billion. billion. But going forward, we cannot guarantee that the market volatility and all of these other factors in place might not hit the principal where we would hit danger zone. And at that point, we also don't want to raid a trust fund that is supposed to be there for generations to come.
All right, I have to wrap it right there. Kimberly
Right.
Yee, there's current state treasurer, wants to be the superintendent of public instruction. Good luck on your campaign. And still ahead, Maricopa County just passed a new $4 billion budget. We'll break it down and what's in that budget when Politics Unplugged continues. Welcome back to Politics Unplugged. While state lawmakers have battled over their budget, Maricopa County leaders quietly passed their $4 billion budget agreement. So what's in it? Here to help us break it all down, Chairman of the Board of Supervisors, Thomas Galvin. Thank you very much for being here today. Congratulations. You passed the budget, a $4 billion budget. Didn't come to close to any kind of county government shutdown like we saw they were threatening to do at the state level. What's the top line success on this? You're very proud of this budget. Why are you so proud of this?
Absolutely. Well, the top line is that we are good stewards of the taxpayer dollars for the voters of Maricopa County. Not only that, but the Maricopa County budget is the second largest budget in the state after the budget that the governor signs. But in this budget, we've cut the overall tax rate for 5 years in a row. We're increasing pay for law enforcement officials in Maricopa County, which is the largest in 15 years. We're also making wise investments, including a state-of-the-art new elections tabulation center. We're investing in 22 projects for parks around Maricopa County so people can enjoy open space and amenities. And we're also going to be building a new West Valley animal shelter. And we're doing all of that while maintaining fiscal responsibility. And we're the largest jurisdiction in the country without general obligation debt.
And so pay raises for sheriff's deputies, what are we looking at there? And do you think this will help with recruitment? It seems like every police agency that I speak with their leaders, recruitment is a big issue.
Recruitment's a big issue, and when I became chairman in January, this was the major plank of my speech when I announced this, and it's because we're working really well and we have a great new sheriff, Jerry Sheridan. But what I have seen is that we have not taken care of the people that are taking care of us. These are the men and women of the sheriff's office, and it's a large department. These are our sheriff deputies, these are our emergency dispatchers, and our detention officers. So for our deputies, we're giving them a 10 to 15% pay increase. For our dispatchers, they're getting a 5 to 10% pay increase. And for our detention officers, they're getting bonuses. And we're doing this because in these tough economic times, including inflation, they've not been able to keep pace because they themselves have to put food on the table for their families. And I think it's only fair to do this with them. And we're going to be doing this as a years-long project, not just a one-off this year.
Okay, and there's also some money in there for, I know, one of your favorite topics, election audits. If somebody just sees the headline and they're familiar with the recent history down there, they might say, like, well, what is this board doing? Didn't they have their fill of audits? We had the high-profile audit conducted by the Cyber Ninjas a few years ago into the 2020 election, which you were on a board that took a lot of heat over that and had to fight back a lot against that audit. What is this audit? What do you want it to do, and what do you think they'll find?
Sure. Well, I think I've garnered national attention for not being election denier, also being a conservative Republican. I'm not even calling this an audit, Dennett. This is what any good business would be doing. We're doing a comprehensive review of our processes. We're not auditing election results. We're asking an independent third-party company to come in and say, what can we do better? Whether that's chain of custody, whether that's physical security of the ballots, how we hire and train poll workers, and how we take care of the ballots that are being tabulated. I think any business does a top-down review, and I think this is the right time to do it. I'm really proud of this process, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they say we can do better, because no one can ever say they're perfect or should get complacent. We should always be striving to do better, and we're going to do that.
And do you think some of the critics out there, like the way the county has run their elections, do you think they're going to be satisfied with whatever comes out of this audit? Do you think the current recorder is going to be satisfied with whatever
Well, we're
comes out
actually
of this?
working with the recorder on this comprehensive review, and we're grateful for the recorder's office for their cooperation, because I think they recognize that we had a really great idea here. So we're glad the recorder's office is following us on this. Also, there is a small segment of people who love to criticize anything and everything.
Sure.
There's also a cottage industry of grifters who like to make money off of this. We're going to disregard those folks. The bulk of people that I talk to in my district in the East Valley or throughout Maricopa County just want to see what can be done better, because we're spending tax dollars on this project and we have to do it the right way.
And I also saw in the budget presentation you guys gave that there is a little bit of concern about this budget staying balanced through the next year. One of the things that was a concern or top concern there was tariffs. How could that affect this budget? What is the concern there, and what would be the worst case scenario?
Well, we have a very conservative budget. When I say conservative, I'm using small c conservative. We have a lot of money in reserve. And what we do when we plan our budget is we plan for every single contingency. This is a balanced budget in Maricopa County. We always pass a balanced budget. But when I say balanced budget, I mean a really balanced budget. No gimmicks, no tricks, nothing, no smoke and mirrors. We're going to be just fine, but we're able to weather any storm that might come our way.
And when you say balanced budget, though, you're also betting on that the amount of money that you're making an estimate about the amount of money you're going to see come in.
That's right.
County coffers.
Exactly. Yep.
And I would assume, though, with the fact that tariffs was listed as a potential concern, that could impact that, or your financial forecasters believe that could impact the amount of money. What are we looking at here?
Well, any worldwide issue could impact the economy here in Arizona. And as a county, we're dependent on whatever state shared revenue comes in. So if it's going to be affecting us, it's going to be affecting all 15 counties in Arizona, and it's going to be affecting the entire state. And once again, we're ready to see any things that might just come our way, even the unexpected.
Okay, and I'll wrap up on this. One thing I have gotten a couple of emails on about this and talked to a few folks is they're asking, was that new plane that you bought for the Sheriff's Department, was that necessary? I believe it was, what, a $5 million expenditure for that plane?
Absolutely necessary and overdue, Dennis. The plane that the Sheriff's Office currently has was built in 1978. It's a nearly 50-year-old plane. We use it for extraditions to get bad guys from out of state, whether they're in California, Texas, or up in Washington State. It's also a very small plane, and I think there were some security concerns there about having inmates sitting directly behind the pilot of the plane. This new plane is bigger. It allows a buffer area between the pilot, the sheriff officers making the arrests, and the inmates being transported back. There's also more space in the plane for the inmates, so we're going to do fewer trips. In the long run, it's a wise investment. We're going to get ROI on that.
All right, we're going to have to wrap up right there. Thank you very much for stopping by here. And I'm bringing in our panel now to talk about all this week's major headlines, including a battle of Arizona politicians on Capitol Hill. That's next on Politics Unplugged. And to get more in-depth on the issues, check out the Politics Unplugged podcast. This week, we talk with consultants Matt Grotsky and Joe Wolf about whether the surprising New York mayor's race could signal a change for the Democratic Party. The Politics Unplugged podcast drops every Sunday evening wherever you get your podcasts. And welcome back to Politics Unplugged. There was a Capitol clash on Capitol Hill between two Arizona politicians, Congressman Greg Stanton and Kari Lake, who is now an advisor for the U.S. Agency for Global Media. During a hearing of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Stanton questioned whether Lake had the character to advise an international news organization.
Ms. Lake, to regain a semblance of your credibility, are you finally ready to admit you lost the 2022 Arizona election?
It saddens me that you are from Arizona and you're okay with
That's
the
a
way
yes or no question, Ms.
saddens
Lake.
me that you are from Arizona.
I guess the answer is no. Reclaiming my time.
Lake has not publicly admitted she lost the 2022 gubernatorial race to current Governor Katie Hobbs following that election. Lake brought numerous lawsuits claiming they were rigged. Stanton mentioned all of those lawsuits failed to prove any of her accusations. So right now, let's bring in our panel. Republican consultant Matt Benson and former Democratic lawmaker Aaron Lieberman. Thank you both for being here. Want to get your takes from this. This was certainly a lot of fireworks on Capitol Hill. Got a lot of attention. They brought Miss Lake into this congressional hearing. She was going to take questions about some of the decisions that have been made, particularly to Voice of America. And it, as you saw, that was just a piece of that back and forth, and it got heated.
Yeah, what else is new?
Yeah.
I mean, Kari Lake's been making claims, frankly, unfounded claims about stolen elections for 4 years now. So I don't think those of us who've been following her were surprised in the slightest with any part of that exchange.
And get your take on that. I mean, Greg Stanton, I mean, really kind of made it, at certain parts, even kind of personal. At one point, he actually kind of like was poking fun at her, mocking her, reminding her that she had lost 2 statewide elections in the past 2 election cycles, and then kind of, sarcastically urging her to run again.
Yeah, first of all, I agree. If she wants to come back here and run again, we're all for it. It's a winner for Democrats for sure. I think the interesting thing on this, Arizonans, particularly people in Phoenix, they know Greg Stanton. He is not a show horse. This is a guy who goes down there, normally keeps his head down and does his work. It was unusual to see him in something like this, but his point was a good one. I mean, she's trying to run something called Voice of America. You're supposed to be out there, and the hearing was actually about, are they broadcasting the truth? And she is, as he said, an adjudicated liar. I mean, some of those facts are not in debate. I think he felt like he had to say something. He did it. It got a little, maybe over the top at the end. But the simple reality of the thing is this is a woman who has done nothing but lie, still is running around saying she's the duly elected governor and is trying to promote truth and freedom abroad. The whole thing's a joke.
All right, let's bring it back now to the state level here and talk about the state budget. We're taping on a Friday. Now, as of Thursday night, the State House passed the Senate budget. It looks like they're going to avoid a government shutdown. There was a June 30th deadline to get a state spending plan in place to keep government funded and running for the next fiscal year. Looks like they're going to avoid that. But let's talk about how we got here. What has been the issue? It's one of those things, like, I've been really trying to find out, like, what exactly is going on here. And it seems like it's more of a personality-driven thing. Matt, what's going on here?
Yeah, I know you'll be shocked, but politics.
I know, right?
Posturing, optics. I mean, welcome to divided government. That's how we got here. Just days ago, I think we were all sort of bracing for a state shutdown, something we haven't seen in decades. And, but, I think what ultimately happened here is enough legislators recognized that the political risks, and in particular the political risks to the Republicans who run the House and Senate, were so significant that they blinked. And they ultimately rallied around a budget, and this will, I suspect, be a non-issue in the 2026 elections. If they had shut down state government, it would have been a big problem.
Yeah, and let's get your perspective as a former lawmaker. I mean, when you start getting close to this deadline, what do you start hearing from how much do you hear from your constituents and from other state agencies and people for all of freaking out at some point?
Constituents, not that much. For the insiders who are involved, it's the end of the world. It's high drama down there when the budget starts to roll out. People are sleeping on their couches. It always seems to have a kind of ebb and flow. It's going to be a crisis. No one's going to get together, and they always seem to work it out. I think it's a big win for Governor Hobbs. A lot of people know the governor's in charge of the state if the state's shut down, even if the House wasn't really negotiating with her. And ultimately, this seems to be how it all comes together. People in the end kind of get to the middle. I think we benefit from divided government because we are getting more in the middle. You had new leadership in the House. They were clearly kind of trying to chart a different path. Basically ended up coming back to the governor and the Senate's budget.
Yeah, but it was, again, it's a bipartisan deal. There's, I think, some stuff in for both sides to like and both sides to not like, correct? I mean, if you start looking at the governor, she had to give up a little bit when it came to border security. I know some Democrats were concerned about that, about some of the spending in this budget that's close to, that was what, a $17.6 billion budget. What are you hearing from Republicans? What are they happy with in this budget?
I think there's a lot in here for Republicans. There's a lot of law enforcement money for first responders, raises for firefighters and DPS. Money for the the gang task force you mentioned on the immigration side. There's tax cuts in there for veterans and small businesses. So there's a lot of wins in here for Republicans.
And what's the biggest win that you're hearing from Democrats, or biggest concerns?
Well, look, the K-12 money went up. That's always a core issue for Democrats. I think Democrats care about making sure our DPS officers are paid and everything else just like that, too. That was one of the things that was actually the outlier on the House side. So, again, I think this is really where Arizona is. Everybody, gives up something. Everybody gets something. We're in the middle, and it's nice to have divided government get to a result that most people will want.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting, too, and it's also a big relief for lawmakers to avoid that big deadline, because I'm not aware of a shutdown ever happening in Arizona history, correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah. All right, we'll have to wrap it right there. That is all the time we have, but be sure to join us next week for more Politics Unplugged. Good night.